radicalization to be understood need not be through a straight-jacketed definition. It can vary from country to country. It can vary according to the context within which radicalization occurs. Radicalization doesn't have to be a state construct, because states can define radicalization as they please, to suppress political dissent, to suppress genuine demands for democratic and civil rights. So, as scholars, I think we need to define radicalization within particular contexts. And in this case, in this regard, I think Myanmar throws up a unique case study where the state itself describes radicalization among the Rohingya community as a major security threat to the state's existence, whereas the fact remains that it is possible that the Rohingya radicalization, in whatever form it exists today, is only a response to the kind of discrimination, marginalization, poverty, and other challenges that the community faced from the dominant Buddhists. The state sided with the Buddhists. So, possibly, to avoid the chicken and egg dilemma, who started the radicalization first, which was the following response, we can always, as scholars of international relations, we can rely on what we understand as the levels of analysis approach, when we describe the personality factors of the decision makers, also the regional factors, international factors, and the domestic factors, to understand what caused those radicalization. I think the Buddhist extremism, which has risen in the recent years, is also a very important subject to study, in addition to the kind of radicalization that may have happened within the Rohingya community. The world, at least many countries, many analysts are waiting for the Rohingya to react, without understanding the fact that Rohingyas are a persecuted community for decades together, and they probably are in no position, as recent incidents have established, to react violently to the might of the Myanmar army. Now, the Myanmar army, which is sided with the Buddhist extremists, probably will have to find answers for its excuses for the kind of things that it has done against the Rohingyas. Will the world find an answer to the Rohingya crisis? Unlikely, unless it sort of revisits its strategy on the Myanmar military, and probably to an extent humiliating the Myanmar military, to try to force it to act on the crimes perpetrated against the Rohingya may not act. The world community or the international community will have to sort of engage the Myanmar military in a constructive manner to end the crisis, because the crisis is something which is unique, which is gigantic in proportion.
My name is Kavita Suri and I am from University of Jammu and Kashmir. My presentation was about radicalization in Jammu and Kashmir, especially in Jammu region. And the causes of radicalization, the cause of radicalization in Jammu and Kashmir, especially in Jammu region, it goes back to the partition of India into India and Pakistan. Jammu and Kashmir was a Muslim-dominated state which was ruled by a Hindu Maharaja who had signed a standstill agreement with both India and Pakistan. But when there was a tribal invasion backed by Pakistan army, he decided to go to India, and thus Jammu and Kashmir became part of India after signing instrument of accession. That was also, since then Kashmir Pakistan is fomenting trouble in Jammu and Kashmir. It wants to control Kashmir very specially, and that is one of the important causes. There has been a lot of politics in Jammu and Kashmir since 1989. There has been a proxy war or an armed conflict going on in Jammu and Kashmir. And there is, since 1989, there have been involvement of non-state actors, militants, various other groups, and there is rise of fundamentalism in Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir primarily is a Sufi culture, which is the entire state is thronged by, dotted by Sufi shrines like Lal Ded and Nanda Rishi. But over the years, because there is an increase in radicalization, people have stopped going to these Sufi shrines, and instead Wahhabi culture is being replaced by the Sufi culture is being replaced by the Wahhabi culture. This is also one of the reasons. Religious preachers have been distributing a lot of literature with regard to Wahhabi and Salafi radical Islam in the mosque, and the youth are being radicalized in all these mosques, especially in Jammu region. In fact, I would say that radicalization, the arc of radicalization has been shifted to Jammu region. Choking of democratic spaces is there, youth cannot speak to anybody. Because of this also, there is unemployment on the rise. So for all these reasons, these are the causes of radicalization. Now, what are the manifestation of radicalization in Jammu and Kashmir? The first reason, the manifestation that I would see is the rise in violence in Jammu and Kashmir. There has been Fidain attacks, deadly suicidal attacks in entire Jammu and Kashmir. In Jammu region also we have seen number of Fidain attacks in the past couple of decades. Communal clashes have been there in Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu is extremely volatile in terms of the communal situation. Polarization, radicalization, all these things are existing between the communities in Jammu region. Rise in the number of mosques is already there in Jammu region, and the rise in the mosques are basically the mosques which are affiliated to Wahhabi ideology. Because of this reason, there is a decline in Sufi culture and more people have started going to Wahhabi. Wahhabi influence is also, I would say, converting the people to radical Islam. Social media has also been misused by all these preachers and all these agencies. What has been the government's role in containing radicalization in Jammu and Kashmir, especially in Jammu region? Government has been taking all the precautionary measures, law and order. There have been arrest, anti-militancy operation, army, CRPF, BSF, etc. They have been holding all these civic action programs. There has been a policy of Operation Sadbhavna, which is winning the hearts and mind of the people. Social media, as I was saying earlier, social media has a power of force multiplier. Social media is being misused in Jammu and Kashmir, and what government has done in this regard, as you know, so much has happened in the past 4 months in Jammu and Kashmir. Article 370 has been abrogated, and since 5th of August 2019, there has been a communication blockade in Jammu and Kashmir. There is no internet in Delhi. So this is also one of the government's response to the situation in Jammu and Kashmir, that it has shut down the social media as social media was aggravating and fueling tensions in the region. External influence, obviously Pakistan is one of the biggest influencers in propagating or radicalizing Jammu and Kashmir. Then there are the influences of external agencies, for example Jamaat-e-Islami and Mehdi Hurriyat Conference for that matter one, and many individuals like Engineer Rashid, and all these are all people who are fomenting trouble in Jammu and Kashmir. Now, what should be the forecast? I would say for Jammu, now with the bifurcation of Jammu and Kashmir state into 2 union territories, one is Ladakh UT, and Jammu and Kashmir has become another UT on 31st of October 2019. Now, what is the way forward? What is the forecast? I would say that next couple of months are very, very crucial in Jammu and Kashmir. In fact, 2 months, because the government has to, now social media has to be, the ban from social media has to be lifted, and when the ban from social media would be lifted, it will be a great challenge for the government to see what would be the situation, how the Kashmir Valley is going to respond, and whatever Kashmir Valley, how Kashmir Valley behaves, it has its repercussions on Jammu region also. That's very, very important. And then government in Jammu region, it has to focus on development. Development in Jammu region has not taken place per se, because Poonch, Rajouri and Doda, these are 3 Muslim dominated districts in Jammu and Kashmir, and highly inaccessible, geographic isolation is too much, and misgovernance and corruption are the 2 important areas. Unemployment is already there. So in the next couple of years, I would say after the abrogation of Article 370, it would be very, very important. Development would be imperative in all these Muslim dominated areas in Jammu and Kashmir, and the government has to have a counter radicalization policy. Otherwise, obviously there has to be a fear of law enforcing agency, otherwise things can become explosive. And elections, as the I mean to say the first Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir UT, Mr. Murmu has given a hint that there would be elections in Jammu and Kashmir. I think elections in Jammu and Kashmir would be a very important achievement if the government would be able to do that. It would provide democratic spaces and the choke spaces, and I think that would pave a way for return of peace and normalcy in Jammu and Kashmir, and more so in Jammu region. Thank you so much.
Hong Kong this year has to be seen in the context of things that have been happening in Hong Kong and in China for several decades. There have been refugees coming into Hong Kong from mainland China for many, many decades. there has been problem of housing and also the democratic aspirations of the Hong Kong people that have been thwarted. First of all, the British didn't give them democracy, and then the democracy that was that was promised to them in the basic law that took effect after the handover of Hong Kong to China in 1997. That has also not yet been fulfilled, so there is a lot of frustration on that score. And then when this extradition bill was proposed earlier this year, it came on top of all these frustrations. The extradition bill was presented because it would have meant that people would be handed to Hong Kong, to China, which has almost no judicial independence. So therefore, there was a lot of opposition to that. And the Hong Kong government didn't listen to the initial expressions of opposition. When 1 million and 2 million people marched on the streets of Hong Kong, they were ignored. It was only after a spurt in violence that finally the bill was withdrawn. And this has given the protesters a message that violence works and that peaceful marches, 1 million people marching doesn't seem to have any effect on the Hong Kong government. So there's been increasing violent confrontations between the police and the protesters. And unfortunately, it looks as if they will continue for some time because what the protesters are now demanding is not only the withdrawal of the bill, which has been considered, but they had added some more demands, including a demand for the investigation of the Hong Kong police force, the conduct of the Hong Kong police force. So that is still being resisted, and so long as that's resisted, the protests are going to continue. And the Hong Kong police have also been behaving in have been extremely violent in their reaction to the protests. And so, as of today, it looks like things are in bad shape. Hong Kong economy is in recession already because of these protests, and Hong Kong as status as an important financial center might suffer as a result of that.
Good evening. In the context of the recent developments in the Indian government talks with the NSA and IM, I think it's an opportune time to really discuss and talk about issues of radicalization in India's northeast, and to look at the broader horizons of what are the major causes of radicalization in northeast, and what also the manifestations and what are the international linkages, and what has the government and the civil society done so far in terms of tackling with this issue, and also in terms of what could be the forecast. So I think if we really shortly look at it, I think it's you can't help but look at the historical narratives, which are really important as far as this region is concerned, and also I would rather put it as the issue of many histories, and the issue of each of the smaller groups really looking at the unique history and trying to place find a place for themselves under the sun, and how each of these groups deal with placing their identity up front, and how do they negotiate, and what are the manifestations really in terms of both non-violent resistance as well as what you have seen in many cases in the form of the sprouting and the proliferation of violent ethnic armed groups, and also in some cases with a tinge of religiously motivated violence as well. And one is to again look at the geographical area of the northeast, that what the nation building and the state building, what the coming of modern political boundaries has really done to the history and also the present contours of what we are dealing with in the northeast. I think the manifestations has been many, and also the causes are many. To look at ethnicity as a major element of whatever is happening in northeast, and also to look at how do you find the manifestations both in terms of groups which are still fighting, which do not have a ceasefire with the Indian government, groups which have gone on to politically undergo some negotiations with the Indian government. So if you see, I mean, as I mentioned about the boundaries, there are neighboring countries in and around India, so you have linkages in terms of how some of these groups have been able to find safe havens in many of these neighboring countries. How the geography in terms of the routes which pertain to both illegal routes really increase the complexities of this problem. And if you look at how we have, there has been the aspect of counterinsurgency, wherein it has amounted to use of force. There has been the sense of more initiatives which do not have use of force, but which are engaging in winning the hearts and minds of the people. You, in the form of the ECS policy, you have a lot of elements wherein connectivity is being seen as one of the major antidote to the problems of Northeast. And there's a thought process that if we could bring in more development and more economic entrepreneurship in the region in terms of creating an integrated economic space in Southeast Asia, with Northeast being the gateway, somewhere you could find a solution to that. But last but not the least, if we look at the forecast, I think a lot of efforts are being made. You will find developments and outcomes of this effort as well. But you'll also find that many of these issues have a long way to go before really sort of coming to a closure. There's a lot of socio-political elements, socio-economic elements that have to be dealt with. There's a lot of things to be done in terms of how do you deal with, how some of these problems become grayer over a period of time, wherein, to sort of end my comments, wherein only the use of force is certainly not an antidote to the problems in Northeast. But only to think that economic and entrepreneurship can also bring about very near-term solution I think is also too optimistic. So I think all in all, I would say that it's a very long-drawn process. It has gone on since the independence of India and some of this the formation of these states in the region. It has gone on for a very long time, and I think we should also not really hope for a very near-term solution. We should actually hope and work towards processes which are able to bring about sustainable peace in the Northeast, which can be taken forward. Not just quick fix solutions that will give a sense of solution for a near term, but might actually complicate the process in the future.
Radicalization is not a new phenomenon though, and it has been different in terms of different regions. It has been contextualized based on the region that we will be talking of. So when talking about Malaysia, the approach of radicalization has been two ways. One, theological, where the religion is the driving force of a particular group or a particular individual, and the other is the psychological approach, which deals with the identity crisis, again it can be of one particular individual or a particular group. Now, radicalization as a process in the Southeast Asian region, and in particular to Malaysia, has mainly developed because of three main causes. The first is the linkage between ethnicity and religion in Malaysia. Now, what do we mean when we say this? It is the intertwining or interplaying of these two issues, religion and ethnicity, within the region of Malaysia, wherein the largest ethnic population, the Malay population, is the Muslim, is also the Muslim. The religion of this ethnic group is Muslim. And when we talk about the Indians, they are the Hindus. When we talk about the Chinese, they are the Buddhists. So there has been a very subtle interplay between religion and ethnicity as the identity of the groups staying in Malaysia. The second is religious fanaticism, where there has been a domination of the religious majority group over the religious minority group, where they try to make them insecure within the location where they are put up in. Now, from the government's angle also, there has been a lot of effective measures that have been taken to identify with the religious fanaticism. So say for example, in the when the government itself mentions, and I quote the government officials, that they forbid the non-Muslim practice of Islam. So what they are basically doing here is they are propagating anti-Shia and anti-Christian values or anti-Christian ideas within the larger community of Malaysia. So where they are against any kind of practice of Islam apart from Sunni way of living, and the second is when they also do not allow the Christians to write God, and they force the Christians are forced to use the word Allah in place of God. Now, giving this as the background of how radicalization has emerged within the, or what are the causes root behind radicalization to have emerged, there have been a lot of manifestations with regard to the process of radicalization coming or can be witnessed within the Malaysian context. Now, to give you one recent example, in the year 2016, there was a private member bill which was placed before the legislative within the legislature to be passed by the name Hudud Bill. This bill was with regard to implementing Sharia laws or expanding the Sharia laws. Now, the passing of this bill would have determined that the punishment laws would become more stringent, and it kind of would infringe the rights of the religious minorities within the region. However, fortunately, this bill wasn't passed within the within the parliament, as there was a lot of agitation against the bill. Now, as recent as this year, there were around 16 people who were being arrested from those who were trying to go to Syria from Malaysia. Now, the whole idea, the whole point behind this is that there have been a lot of issues and crises with regard to the process of people becoming radical and giving up into radical views, their minds being radicalized. Now, what the government has been doing, what the government has been initiating. Under the Internal Security Act of 1960, the Malaysian government has formulated a series of legislations that have been at place to educate and rehabilitate the people who have been detained and who are there arrested because of their involvement in militancy activities. Now, a couple of civil society organizations have also taken up initiative to spread awareness, create awareness, and help these people to come out of the idea of radicalization and not being radicalized. Now, the future of Malaysia and radicalization lies in the fact that there has been a series of people getting recruited online. And if the government sources are to believe, there have been 98% of people recruited online. And the mention worthy in this regard is the Revolusi Islam, which was a website created by Rohimia Rahim in order to make people get recruited to form a group of radicals within the Malaysian context. Now, people may argue that online extremism would stop for a while, but then what I would encounter or what I would counter the arguments with is that it's a long way to go. Social media and internet will be playing an effective role in the becoming the breeding ground of radicalism in Malaysia.
In recent decades, we have seen an increasing radicalization in coastal Karnataka, particularly in the districts of Uttar Kannada and as well as Southern Kannada, whom we also refer to as Uttar Kannada and Southern Kannada. So I am taking a case study of Bhatkal in Uttar Kannada and as well as Mangalore in the Southern Kannada to understand the radicalization of youths and the larger society in the context of Islamic fundamentalism or Islamic radicalization in Uttar Kannada and Hindutva radicalization in the case of Mangalore. So, Karnataka has always witnessed earlier sort of syncretic culture whereby people from different religions, different castes, different class used to come together to various places in sort of a syncretic and sharing their values and cultures. However, in the recent decades, there has been a shift in this whereby there is dissolving or threat to syncretic culture in the name of religion and culture. Further, very importantly, radicalization is occurring being targeted to that section of the society which is literate, which is to some extent urban class, middle class, and who are educated sections of the society. This section is getting radicalized. The causes of radicalization could be many, okay, starting from religious to political to social and economic. The religious angle to it is interpretation of religious text in an extreme ideology or extreme phase, and engaging in hatredness towards the other communities, and exclusivist sort of ideology, and taking it in extreme form to express one's own point of view. And with regard to manifestations, they are being seen in various terror-related activities or terror activities, threat to the larger society. And on the other hand, in the name of protection of culture and religion, be it with regard to eating habits such as beef eating or cow slaughter, or in the name of love jihad, or in the name of intermingling of religions between communities and people from different regions and caste, and a threat of being either westernization or threat of some other foreign elements, and very importantly conversion issues are all being highlighted in order to put across their one's point of view. With regard to some of the initiatives of government and civil society, the government of Karnataka has set up many anti-terror squads, has been trying to monitor the social activities and as well as counseling of youths, and trying to convince the community leaders in order to influence their own community members. And as well as civil society, many civil society organizations are working towards peace, particularly Karnataka Komu Saumardha Vedike, People's Union of Civil Liberties. They are engaging in people, trying to contact the community members and interacting with them, trying to highlight their issues and challenges. Yes, with regard to international linkages, they do have international linkages and as well as national linkages. Though these two radicalization, we can see, call it as a homegrown radicalization, but despite that, they have some sort of international linkages, talking about extremist, violent, and as well as extremist identity. With regard to forecast, if this trend continues to be so, that there is not just communalization, there is not just radicalization, but there is also communalization and polarization of politics, polarization of society, and polarization of minds.